I'm Josh with Taproot Fields, and today we got an amazing guest, Aaron Field. Give us a little bit of your background.
Yeah, well, I got into farming when I moved to Colorado in 2009. I wasn't into farming at all, but cannabis brought me in.
Right.
A lot of people.
Sure.
So at first, I did not farm regeneratively. I went along with the standard way of doing things, which mostly at that time was indoors with lights and chemicals like salt-based fertilizers and pesticides and fungicides and things like that.
Sure.
But my friends had some really good weed. One friend in particular just always had better weed than I could grow. And it was driving me crazy. And I asked him, like, what is it, man? Like, why is this so much better?
Right.
The flavor, the high, it was just better. And he's like, it's organic.
Right.
You know, it's grown with soil and water.
Right.
And that's why it comes out like this. And I didn't know if I believed it at first, but it was, you know, I had to try it.
Sure.
So it took a little while of figuring out how to do it and still be commercially productive, but that journey started for me about 7 or 8 years ago as I learned to farm without nutrients and fertilizers and pesticides and things like that, which can be difficult, especially in indoor greenhouse type settings.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You know, your other name and Instagram is rooted_New York.
Yes.
So your roots are here. But for a long time you were out in Colorado. What were you doing out in Colorado?
Well, I grew up here near Syracuse, and I had some life changes. I got divorced. I was married young and got divorced, and there was none of my friends left in the area around
Sure.
here. Everybody was kind of moving away or had moved away, and I just felt like it was time for a change. So I'd been on vacation to Colorado and went snowboarding there, which is another passion of mine, and
Sure.
just fell in love. So I was like, why not there?
Yeah,
Let's
right.
go. Yep.
You and I both share that a little bit. You know, it was kind of the same experience. You know, I wasn't married at the time, but I had moved. I was actually living in Burlington, Vermont, and Winooski actually, and I loved it up there, but it was so freaking cold. And I was up vacation Colorado and fell in love with it because of the mountains. I'm a skier. And Travis, who, you know, obviously we were really compatible skiing buddies, you know, or snowboard buddies. And so it was an amazing experience out there. But again, so when you moved out there, did you just get into cannabis growing? How'd you get into that kind of thing?
No, I was a salesperson
Okay.
by trade, and I had started a real estate company in New York. So I'd done a little bit of entrepreneurial stuff.
Sure.
But was hopping back and forth between working for others or, you know, doing a sales business of my own, like selling real estate.
Right.
I went to work for a telecom company in
Okay.
Colorado when I first got there and spent about a year doing that. But in the meantime, got really into weed because
Sure.
it was, you know, legal and just it was having a renaissance there in 2009
Yep.
when the federal government stopped funding the DEA. There was something Obama passed. It
Sure.
was something in that time period, but it kind of gave the green light for Colorado, who already had some medical laws, to start opening up more dispensaries, retail stores, and eventually commercial grow operations. So it was really fun to be out there at the cutting edge of the evolution of the industry.
The very beginning of it, you know, legally anyway, you know,
Yeah.
making that. And you're right. It was quite the renaissance out there. And it's one of the reasons we kind of did similar. It was like, it's a little bit more progressive in some ways. And it was kind of shocking that Colorado was first. I mean, really, California's had a long history, not like any
Much
other
longer.
states, but they just couldn't get it together enough to make a legal go of it at the time,
Right.
where Colorado did. And I know we saw an influx of people come to Colorado afterwards because they're the only ones, you know. But,
Well, in 2009, I think California started really blowing up too.
Yeah.
It was the states like California and Colorado that had favorable laws or medical programs
Right.
already in operation.
Sure.
So that kind of allowed, it kind of gave people some bravery.
Yeah.
I think like, oh, well,
Right.
they're not going to come shut us down like they used to, or maybe it's not 20 years in prison.
Yeah, right.
We'll give it a shot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool. And then obviously, you're back in New York. We're here. You're helping us out, and kind of a new chapter for you to some degree. Taking some of the experience that you've learned, and now applying it. Your passions and stuff, which is awesome. And what kind of drove you to come back?
Well, I never knew if I would want to come back home.
Yeah.
The weather here is not as nice as it is in Colorado sometimes, and
we don't get a lot of sunshine here, do we?
Well, it's a lot
been getting better now.
Yeah, but the mountains aren't here like the Rockies are in Colorado, but my family's here.
Yeah.
And honestly, the industry in Colorado is kind of dead.
Yeah.
So knowing that this was my career path, I knew it was time to get out of that state.
Sure.
The way that the regulations were created and enacted in Colorado has led to a very stifled market.
Right.
And as we know, it's happening in many states across the country. Prices are in the shitter.
Yeah.
They're
right.
I don't know how else to say it, but
No.
it's really like there has been a lot of struggle, especially for farmers, because
Sure.
we're the start of the supply chain. And when you've got a system where the farmer needs to sell to a distributor who needs to sell to a retailer who then sells to the public, and you've got 3 or 4 middlemen, it's the farmer takes the short end of the stick on that. So
Totally.
it was not the best environment in Colorado, and I thought that New York looked promising. My family's here.
Yeah.
And emerging states, a lot of times, even if they don't work out really well, we know that what happens is there is some opportunity to do well for a year or two at least.
Yeah.
At the
Right.
beginning. So
Yeah.
worst case scenario, hopefully we can capitalize on whatever makes sense to do here.
Yeah, and I think fingers crossed that we got New York is choosing to do the right kind of things, so hopefully we have a little bit longer of a shelf life in this industry to some degree, and we'll dive deeper on some later podcasts about that coming up here. But I do want to point out, part of how you make a living too is by doing some of these classroom and teaching and consultation work.
Yeah.
We have an event that you're going to be kind of leading it up on December 10th, which is a Saturday, next Saturday from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. It's a free education. And really, what are we going to be focusing on this week or that week of, your class there?
Yeah, this one by participant demand, because we took surveys at the end of our last one.
Right.
People wanted to know about building soil.
Yeah.
How to make and maintain a quality, productive living soil that does not require fertilizers and chemicals to feed the plants.
Right.
So that's what we're going to go through. I've got it divided into 3 sections, and we'll talk about designing the soil, actually making it, how you do that properly, and then we'll talk about maintaining it long term so that you can get round after round of excellent quality and yield out of the soil that you make.
It just gets like better and better, right?
Every round it should
Yeah.
get better,
Right.
and you should be able to go 20, 30 cycles and still have the kind of fertility you need.
I mean, you're amending during this process, right?
Yeah.
To some extent too, making sure, through tests and that kind of thing that you're staying on par. But that's awesome. We're really excited to be hosting this event and really diving deeper into this. So if you're in the central New York area and really care about this kind of stuff, we're gonna let me see. Let me put up the flyer here for everybody to see. It gives you all the information right there. And check it out. We'd love to have you. We're also going to do a little bit of a farm tour as well. And then go right into the classroom when it kind of gets dark. The New York darkness happens so early nowadays, but so that'd be great. Check it out. But enough of that. We got some questions we want to ask you, Aaron. And how long did you work in Colorado?
It was probably 11 years in the licensed industry, about a little over a decade.
And you said sales was part of it. Did you do any other kind of?
Oh, in the cannabis industry, I never did
Okay.
any real sales, but I was a grower.
Right. Okay.
My first industry job was on a harvest team. So harvesting plants, trimming, wet trim, dry trim,
Right.
the cure process,
Yeah.
all of that stuff.
So you started being a grunt basically, like
Yeah.
where pretty much
Yeah.
everybody should start off doing
Right.
this, right? You really get to know the plant inside and out
Yeah.
and get a handle of it. And
Well, home grow laws were favorable.
Sure.
In 2009, you could grow weed at home
Yep.
and you could bring it to a store.
Yeah.
You could sell, in fact, before a law passed in Colorado that required retail establishments to grow a majority of their own product, most of what they were getting was either coming from
Wholesale.
out of state
Yeah.
or it was coming from home growers in the state, which was a really cool time. It was a fun thing to be a part of.
yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah. So I was a grower and I was looking for a way to get a job growing in the rec legal market, or excuse me, at the time it was the medically legal market,
Right.
not the rec market.
Sure.
So I remember my first interview for, if you want to call it an interview, for a grow position involved me bringing the owners of a company to my 30 lighter and showing
Right.
them, hey, here's what we can do. Just imagine this on a bigger scale.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure, yeah. And that led to the next job, right? That you were working in, and where is that where you learned about KNF stuff?
Well, Korean natural farming came much later for me.
Oh, okay.
That's only something I've been pursuing for a few years now. It's
Okay.
been about 3 years, I think,
Okay,
for Korean natural farming. But before that, I mentioned 7 or 8 years ago, I started to study living soil and learn how to grow that way. I started off learning from Elaine Ingham,
right,
and she's known for her work on the soil food web and the quantification of and qualification of what's happening
Sure.
in the food web using microscopy and other techniques, good composting
And I want to point out too, if you don't know her, go check her out. She does offer classes, and it's a great class to learn. And you're going to find a lot of time looking at the microscope, trying to find organisms, the right organisms. Yeah. So you'd say, was there somebody else too that you kind of led into not only Dr. Elaine, but there's some others like Chris Trump or
Yeah. I was influenced a lot towards the fermentation methods I
Sure.
use today by someone who will remain unnamed, but
Okay.
was running a company doing a lot of bokashi fermentation.
Okay.
So as I was getting into living soil, I also was learning about anaerobes and facultative anaerobes, which was sort of conflicting to my
Previous knowledge.
training with Elaine. Yeah,
Okay.
because at that time especially, Elaine would just basically encourage aerobic soil conditions at all times. And anything having to do with anaerobes was not really focused on.
Sure.
I'm not going to say discouraged necessarily, but
That wasn't her focus. Yeah.
yeah. So I kind of went on my own path trying to figure that stuff out and learned a lot about fermentation through that. And then I began to follow Korean natural farming when I met Chris Trump and sat through a presentation that he did at the Science of Regenerative Organic Cannabis event that was held in Humboldt in California.
Nice.
So up until that point, I had a misconceived idea of what Korean natural farming was. I thought it was just a bunch of ferments that were laden with sugar, and it's probably going to create anaerobic conditions and alcohols in my soil, and I should just not
Try
bother
it.
with that. But lucky for me, Chris gave a presentation on indigenous microorganisms, and I realized when I saw that this was a tech that I had been sleeping on.
Sure.
Totally something that could be hugely beneficial, especially in building fungal biomass and microbial diversity in the soil. So I decided to take his class and learn as much as I could about natural farming.
Sure, that's awesome. Okay, we're gonna keep on digging it. Some of these questions are answer them how you will, I guess. But what would be one of your biggest failures, and what did you learn from it?
Well, I lost millions of dollars of a good friend's money in a venture. That was tough. I would say that's probably one of
the bigger ones. Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I had been farming hemp for 2 years, 2017 and 18 with another group, and watching the owner of that company achieve very good success,
Sure.
substantial success. And it was easy, honestly.
Right.
The conditions for CBD farming and the market for that was in a hype bubble at the time.
Yeah.
And I thought that this could be the ticket. So, two.
You're not the only one.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So, timing being what it was, I got in with my own business and raised a bunch of capital for the 2019 season.
Right.
Which everyone knows is the year that hemp sort of crashed.
Yeah. Right.
So that was really difficult. That was one of the bigger risks that I've ever undertaken.
Sure.
As far as starting a business, and it was certainly, financially one of the biggest failures. It was difficult.
So out of that failure, the lesson that you learn. Don't make that large of a, or I mean, what was the takeaway? I mean, what makes you sleep at, that at knowing that, hey, at least I knew not to do that again, or
right. It's really about risk assessment.
Yeah.
In starting a business, it's probably never wise. This is the lesson I learned. It's probably never wise, even if you have experience in an industry or in a certain field, to come into something with a huge project backed by hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars.
Right.
In our case, it was a little over $3 million.
Yeah.
And it was a large project, and it could have gone very well, and our projections based on previous years could have had us
doing really well.
Yeah. Or it could crash and burn, and you can lose everything. And, it's especially in an emerging market like cannabis, whether it's hemp or farming for THC, this is all very new.
Yeah.
So the biggest lesson I learned is that risk mitigation is one of the most important aspects of starting a business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Don't neglect that.
That's great advice. So that was a big one, and it leads to this other question. If you could go back in time and tell your 18-year-old self advice, what would that be?
For my 18-year-old self, man, I don't know. That's a tough one. Maybe
don't invest millions of dollars into CBD.
Yeah. Tell myself that when I'm 18, so that when I'm 35, I don't do it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. But no, if I was 18, it would probably be something along the lines of following my heart, my passions, and realizing that money can come from any person. Yeah, because I spent a number of years and a number of different attempts or endeavors at furthering my career or businesses that I started along the way, because I thought that those things would get me somewhere else,
right,
where then I could do what I wanted to do.
Sure.
Right. So it's like, if we make millions of dollars growing hemp, then I can use that millions to go then do what I want and build a smaller craft cannabis grow farmstead type, and it's like a means to an end, rather than just pursuing what it is that you love to begin with.
Hey, well,
Yeah.
I think you took your shot, and it's a shot, right? And I think some people, or they say with a lot, are like, you can never win if you don't play. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's kind of a risk, and never a guaranteed thing. But I think that gives you that lesson, right? And makes it as tough as it is, who you are, and I think that's important for people to understand. Um, that's a good one. So, what would be one of the, let's see, a piece of advice for somebody who's looking to get into building living soils and going down this route?
Yeah, well, it depends on why you're growing,
Yeah.
what you're growing, why you're growing. If you're a home grower that just wants to supply yourself with your own food and herbs, the advice may be different than somebody who's going into it as a commercial
Right.
endeavor. But advice for somebody just getting started, I would say, is just trust nature.
Yeah.
Trust that nature knows how to grow plants.
Yeah.
Plants know how to grow themselves as part of nature. And don't worry too much about trying to figure it all out. Some of these topics that you can study when it comes to soil science, biology, the chemistry of what's going on, the physics even,
Right.
they're endless rabbit holes that there are no answers at the end of in many
Right.
cases. We still don't fully understand how photosynthesis works.
Right.
So you're not going to figure it all out, but nature already has.
Yeah.
So if you are getting into growing in living soil, and whether you have experience growing with fertilizers and chemicals and are switching to it, or you're just now getting into farming in general, just trust nature, because if you figure out how to interface and relate with nature, you will forever after that, you will be starting from the proper foundation.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Let's see. So I know you're a reader and you like following books. Are there 3 books that you can recommend to our audience that would be fit in this category, or could
Yeah.
further everyone's education
Yeah.
on these subjects? Right.
Yeah. Right now, I haven't finished it, but I'm reading The Fourth Phase of Water by Gerald Pollack.
Okay.
Fantastic book.
Nice.
Absolutely fascinating. And also fills in a lot of the blanks for me around nutrient uptake and the possible ways which that happens.
Right.
I won't say too much
Sure.
about it, but it possibly upends a lot of the existing science that we have
Right.
today,
Yeah.
which is always exciting.
Yes, it kind of is, and this is what I want to point out real quick is the Korean natural farming and the indigenous microorganisms, which I'm rocking your shirt right now.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can see it on the screen, but it's
Yeah.
freaking embrace diversity, right?
Yeah.
And it's like a whole new frontier. And Dr. Lane we discovered a handful of these things that are important, but there's thousands, if not more, that we haven't really discovered what they're all about and why they're a benefit, right? And so that's a whole new frontier. And so I agree with you on that 100%.
Yeah. So a couple more you want?
Yeah,
more?
a couple more if you got any. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Well, this isn't a book, but the book to start with is called Teaming with Microbes,
Okay.
especially for beginners.
Mm-hmm.
This book is so great and the series is so great. It's by Jeff Lowenfels, and they're so great that we decided at Rooted that we would carry them and sell them at our
cool.
educational event. So if
Nice.
you come to our event on December 10th, we'll have some of his 4 books in the series for sale. But especially if you're newer to living soil and organics, Teaming with Microbes is an excellent, very accessible book that you can read that will give you the basic understanding of what's happening in soil, how plants are interacting with the microbiology and feeding themselves.
Right.
So excellent book there.
Nice.
And you asked for 3. That's
Yeah. Well, if you got it. Not everybody reads books these days. You know what I mean?
Everybody should read The One Straw Revolution too.
Okay.
I just think that's like a great. It's an easy read. It's
Nice.
a small book. It's a great positive, outlook on what's possible
Right.
with natural methods of farming, and it's just very encouraging book to get you into the revolution that is
Right.
regenerative farming.
Well, awesome.
Yeah.
This is kind of silly, but what's one question you wished I'd asked, and how would you have answered?
Ooh. That's always a good question. I wish that you had asked me about this is tough. I don't know.
Well, we can pass on that one if you'd like. Here's some things that I know you'll be able to answer real quick, and I didn't want to share these. What's your favorite cannabis strain and why?
Oh yeah, it's got to be OG Kush of
OG
some kind.
Kush,
Yeah, the Triangle Kush, the SFV.
Yeah.
Those are just. I think they will forever be my favorites.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about, so do you have a favorite standalone terp smell?
Well, yeah, I mean, raunchy gas type stuff is probably my favorite. It's not my favorite smoke.
Right.
OG usually doesn't smell as loud and raunchy as some of the chem varieties and stuff, but they're all related. Chem and OG are closely related. And, I do like that really rotten, funky, stuff that you're like,
cheesy.
Yeah, it's almost, I don't go for the fruit profiles as much. And
Interesting.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind of a little bit different. I like the fruits for sure, and fruit gas. But what's favorite non-cannabis plant?
Favorite plant that's not cannabis?
Yeah.
Maybe cucumbers.
Oh, okay.
I freaking love growing cucumbers, and I love making pickles.
Okay.
So
that makes sense.
Yeah, that could be one of them. I think. I also.
How about ornamental? You got any ornamentals that you like, or a plant that you like? Are you a succulent guy, or I don't know, cactus? Some people like cactus, and
I have a Hoya that I really like right now at my house, and also I'm just always growing aloe. So
yeah.
I really love aloe for a lot of reasons. But yeah.
And last but not least, we've done about 30 minutes here, which is awesome. So. Where can listeners find you? Obviously, Rooted _ New York on Instagram and Facebook, correct?
Yep.
Is there any other place that you want people to stay tuned, or if you guys need any consultation, they can get a hold of you, or go through Instagram, I guess, or something like that?
Yeah, Instagram is probably best. It's at Rooted _
Okay, and we'll put that in there for everybody. And so they can get it. And
that's the best place to get a hold of us. You can email us at info@rooted-ny.
Okay.
Not _.
Okay.
Because unfortunately the domain was taken. But yeah, rooted-ny, so info, or my email is Aaron@Rooted. And it should be mentioned too that Rooted is a partnership, and my partner Bryn is a huge part of it. So she can be reached at Bryn@Rooted-ny.com, and the shirt you made is her handiwork, as well as the website and
graphics. She does a great job for you guys.
Yeah,
for sure. It's awesome.
Absolutely. And the class, the slides, the setup of the class and production of the event, she's got a lot to do with that. And
then there's his handle too, at _Rooted _ New York, and the free educational series this next Saturday, the 10th of December, from 2 to 6. It's being held at Taproot Fields, and we'll give you the address if you're interested in. There's also a link too, if you go on your Instagram to RSVP, which would be
Yes.
great for everybody, just so we know who's coming. We want to make sure we have enough seats and tables for everybody. And
Yeah. By the way, we had 32 people at the initial class, which was awesome.
Yeah.
And that class was just an overview of all the topics inside of natural and regenerative farming.
Yep.
You guys picked the building of living soil and the maintaining of living soil as the next topic. So come on out, and we're going to drill down in a lot more detail into this one specific category this time.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thanks again. I really appreciate you having on, and we're going to do many more of these, and we'll probably even record that class as well, and maybe we'll put it up for people so they can, if you can't make it here, at least the information will be out there for people. But if you don't, like and subscribe to this, and as well as to Aaron at Rooted_New York or _Rooted_New York. Correct. And that's on what? Facebook? Is that what you said?
Instagram.
Instagram
is the underscore.
Is the underscore.
So, rooted_NY, and our website is rooted-NY.
Awesome. Thanks again, Aaron. I appreciate the time, and have a great weekend. All right.
Thanks, Josh.
All right. Take care.